Welcome to Olympian Water Testing, giving you the best in water analysis. Today we are looking at Earth Justice, and we're looking at the EPA's first drinking water standards for toxic PFAS and how that compares to what's in New York and some background information. So the EPA today proposed the first nationwide limits on the amount of 6 highly toxic PFAS in drinking water. The proposal to regulate these chemicals in drinking water, the first new drinking water standards from the EPA in 20 years, would reduce the people's exposure to serious health risks and prevent thousands of premature deaths. The EPA proposed standards that cover 6 PFAS that have contaminated drinking water supplies: PFOA, PFOS, PFNA, PFBS, PFH, XS, and Gen X. For PFOA and PFOS, the EPA proposed a binding drinking water limit of 4 parts per trillion per chemical. For the other PFAS, EPA proposed a binding limit based on a hazard index designed to address those chemicals' cumulative effects. And the EPA's levels are lower than New York's existing and proposed PFAS standards, which is something interesting to note, that the EPA might have one level, 1 MCL, and then the Department of Health will have another MCL. So it's something to take note of because they're both regulating what's in water, but they might have different interpretations. So what's New York's interpretation? The Department of Health, the DOH, has currently MCLs for PFOA and PFOS at 10 parts per trillion for each chemical. In September 2022, the Department of Health proposed to regulate 23 additional PFAS with maximum containment levels and notification levels higher than the EPA's proposal, so they're going one step above actually. EPA's historic proposal to regulate toxic PFAS will be celebrated by millions of New Yorkers that have been exposed to these chemicals in their drinking water. Governor Hochul and the Department of Health should follow the EPA's lead and immediately lower the state-proposed and existing PFAS drinking water standards. EPA finds and confirms what may have long been suspected and validates what clean water and public health advocates have been calling on New York State Department of Health to do for years. There's no safe level of exposure to PFAS, and drinking water standards must reflect that. From Hoosick Falls, Petersburg, and Newburgh to numerous communities on Long Island, too many New Yorkers have reeled from the devastating health consequences of exposures to PFAS. The governor's administration shouldn't wait for EPA proposal to be finalized, but rather should immediately direct the Department of Health to revise New York's MCLs to best protect public health. And then a little bit of background information on what these are. PFAS are a toxic class of more than 12,000 chemicals that persist in the environment and build up in the human body over time. And that's an issue because you might even be drinking something with PFAS. But the issue is the water you're drinking with PFAS you're not noticing until it accumulates over time and causes problems. Despite their severe health effects, including cancer, reproductive and development harm, and immune system suppression, PFAS remain widespread and are estimated to contaminate the drinking water supplies of approximately 200 million people in the United States. In 2022, the EPA issued health advisories finding serious risks from any detectable level of PFOA or PFOS in drinking water, with the most significant risks to young children. So keep that in mind. 200 million, the population of the U.S. is about 330 million. So hundreds of millions of people are being affected by this. It's interesting to see a comparison from the EPA's standards and the New York Department of Health standards as well. So they're both taking a look at it. But it's always a good idea to periodically test your water for these chemicals as well.